today. Oh, how did you know?
T-Mobile now has Binge On, so you can stream all the movies, TV, and sports you want without using your data. It's like free.
What? Introducing Binge On with T-Mobile. Stream video free without using your data from Netflix, HBO Now, Hulu, and many more.
Awesome one. Judah Friedlander is here. You might remember him as Frank Rossitano at 30 Rock on NBC, but he's also done 1.5 million movies and TV shows. Wet Hot American Summer, American Splendor, Meet the Parents, Zoolander. Am I the one that took the crazy pill? I think I remember you in that.
I played in Zoolander. Oh, yeah, I had a little part in that. I played Scrappy Zoolander. I was, me and Vince Vaughn played his two brothers, and John Voight played the dad. So we were his coal miner brothers there.
That's awesome.
That was a lot of fun.
And then just about every TV show, Spin City, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Sesame Street,
yeah,
The Burn with Jeffrey Ross. And recently he was on Howard Stern, Daily Show, and even the Jimmy Dore Show. The reason for that is he's going around telling everybody about what would happen if the raindrops united.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's the title of his book. It's basically a cartoon book. It's called If the Raindrops United. There's a lot of stuff in here that I want to talk about. I want to talk about your life.
Sure.
But what is that nightmare scenario if they unite? What happens to us?
Well, it's basically, a 10-minute drizzle. If all those raindrops that were in a 10-minute drizzle, which does nothing, it's drizzling out. Most people don't even use an umbrella. But if all those tiny raindrops actually got together, put aside their differences, they could form one giant raindrop about 20 city blocks in diameter and destroy a whole city.
Good for them.
Yeah, so it's sort of
numbers.
So it's sort of a dark metaphor that if people can actually, come together, they can have a lot of power, more power than they think. They can use it for good or for bad, but they can have power. Because a lot of people feel powerless. I think that's why a lot of people don't vote. But they come together, they can actually get things done.
Well, Judah, no one in this country agrees with you more than I do. Okay, because that's what we're trying to do with Wolfpack, which is our super PAC to destroy all other super PACs.
I love it.
Okay, and we think that, hey, you know what? You're a lot more powerful than you realize. And if we all unite, and we don't need everybody in the country, we need a hardcore group of people who are willing to fight. In our case, we're trying to regain democracy from the oligarchs and the corporations that have seized it, right?
Yep.
That theme is throughout the book.
Yeah.
Of course, you do it with comedy, and some of the stuff is serious, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so, as I leaf through this, I get the sense that you're a no-good lib. Is that true?
A what?
A no-good lib.
Oh, that term. Yeah. No, I'm like, I'm for human rights, and I'm for.
How dare you?
Yeah. So it's like, people use all different kinds of terms, but I'm like, how can you not be for justice and human rights and earth rights? How can you live on this planet and not be that?
No, but
I always find that bizarre.
It is bizarre, but the minute you said earth rights, you lost like 40% of the country. They're like, oh, this guy's for the goddamn earth.
Yeah, right. Well, we do live here,
right?
So
isn't that funny? It's as simple as we do live here.
Yeah, that's like being if someone thinks you're bad because you're pro-earth, that's like being like you don't give a shit about your house. Or your apartment. Let's just dump oil all over the house here. Let's run a pipeline through my apartment. I might make an extra few bucks that the guys will kick back to me. Or if there's a leak, oh shit, I gotta move. Or so it's like think about it.
I have a simpler analogy. I know a guy who pisses all over his toilet seat. Right?
Yeah.
His house is a goddamn mess, and nobody wants to go in that house.
Yeah.
Let's not piss on our toilet seat.
Yeah.
Right?
No friends. He's got no friends anymore.
Right. Yeah. And so let's keep the earth relatively stable. I'm not asking for much, right?
Yeah.
So it always amuses me when Bill O'Reilly says, the secular humanists.
Yeah.
Like, wait, that means we're for the human being.
Yeah.
Like, that's wrong? That's bad?
Yeah, how is being a humanist wrong? Yeah, I don't.
So you are half Croatian American, which means there's like 3 of you in the country, right? Then this Croatians are not.
Yeah, I don't know. My mom grew up in a Croatian neighborhood in Pittsburgh, and the neighborhood she grew up in is not as Croatian as it used to be. My dad's, he's Jewish from Brooklyn. His parents from, then it was Russia, but it was Ukraine,
right.
So, yeah, I'm not like, I respect all religions. I'm not a religious person really, but I respect them all. And so yeah, I grew up in different places, mostly Maryland, but I've been in New York since '87, and work took me out here for a couple years in the early 2000s, and yeah,
Yeah.
I get around. I try. I mean, doing stand up, I tour all over the place.
So Russian Jewish from Brooklyn is not uncommon. That's fairly normal.
Yeah, that's pretty common.
Right.
Yeah.
Croatian, is there like a Croatian? I don't know why I'm obsessed with this, but is there a Croatian community? Was there pressure to hang out with other Croatian Americans?
Well, I grew up, mostly in Maryland, which was not near where my dad's side grew up or where my mom's side of the family grew up. So I never really saw relatives all that often. I would see relatives from my mom's side more often than my dad's side. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, because my name is very Jewish sounding, and it's very Jewish sounding, but I'm not religious, and I've been treated by different people differently over the years. Because sometimes people who are anti-Jewish will you'll hear your name and they'll act maybe not so nice to you. But then I've even had Jewish people who I've had like Jewish girls, like sometimes not often, but once in a while a Jewish girl might hit on me. And then she finds out that my mom is not Jewish. And then to her, the way her interpretation of being Jewish, that means I'm not Jewish. So she looks at me like I tricked her. And then I just robbed her apartment when she wasn't home. Like I'm the worst person in the world. Now, if
you never claimed anything.
Yeah, I know. It's like I didn't do anything. So that split second, where if she mentions about where you bar mitzvah, I'm like, no, and then it'll be like she goes from she'll go from really liking you to absolutely despising you just based on that one thing. Now, if you go back in time to World War II, Hitler considered you Jewish if one of your grandparents was Jewish.
Yeah.
So in that sense, Hitler was actually more inclusive of Jewish people than many Jewish people today.
That didn't work out well though.
No.
He had not been.
No. I'm not pro Hitler or anything, but in a sense,
very clear on the record.
Yeah.
Very
in a sense, he was more inclusive of Jewish people.
Right. So to me, the people that discriminate against hardly Jewish people, like my longtime co-host Ben, is half Jewish, half Mormon, right? And so he has similar issues. His mom is Mormon. So almost the same exact.
Yeah.
And he has the Hitler rule too, which is if Hitler considers me Jewish, I'm Jewish enough.
Yeah.
So get off my back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not like Hitler would have been like, Judah Friedlander, oh, your mom's not Jewish. Yeah. No problem.
Yeah, you're cool. Yeah.
So it's funny, I never thought about your name, but yeah. That's right. Okay. Yeah. So, but you represent all people because you're a world champion.
The world champion.
That's right.
So,
in 2010, you wrote a book called How to Beat Up Anybody, an instructional and inspirational karate book by the world champion.
Yeah.
So, first, are you world champion in just karate or world champion of just the world?
Well, it's all sports.
All sports.
The world champion persona is, it is me too, but it's also persona. But I initially started doing it about more than 15 years ago, and initially it started as this sort of bragging kind of character. Just because I decided I was obsessed with the Guinness Book of World Records when I was a kid, and so when I was somewhere in my 20s, I was writing all these jokes about all these insane world records that I had done, and I made a hat that said record breaker, and that would sort of lead me into doing some of these jokes about these ridiculous athletic achievements. And then
I figured out you were Trump before Trump.
Oh, way before Trump. Yeah. I mean,
Trump stole your hat.
Yeah. I mean, well, he definitely stole the hat stuff.
That's right.
Yeah,
my God.
I mean, the hat
fucking Trump.
Yeah, and it's
you should sue him.
I know, and his hats. If you look at him, I mean, when he talks about rebuilding our country's infrastructure, you look at the poor, low quality hats that he's made for himself. I mean, you look at this hat. You look at his hats don't even have the American flag on it, and his hats are red and white. What is he running for? The president of Canada? We're red, white, and blue.
That's right.
He doesn't even get the colors right. And his hats are made in China.
Yeah, he couldn't beat you in a world championship.
No way.
Have you ever done karate?
Just very, very little bit. There's two sports my previous book and some stuff that I've done in my act is really spoofing the like two kind of industries. One is the martial arts, the American martial art hero in movies, and then also in the the instructions in karate schools, because some of them are just you can't just go and show up in sweatpants. You have to buy their uniform with their school's logo on it.
Because buying their uniform is all about gives you discipline.
Yeah, it gives you discipline, and it gives you peace and centers you, and it costs $100 instead of just $20, which it should cost.
Baby.
Yeah. So and then for a while the world champion persona, it sort of stopped becoming a bragging character. And he actually started morphing into a real-life superhero who really does all these amazing athletic achievements, and it's just humbly stating them, and they just happen to be incredible. Because one thing I noticed in my act, people, it's almost like they wanted a hero. People want a hero, and I think that's why Trump even gets, a lot of people want to believe in something.
That's right.
No matter how misguided or guided they are, they want, like even Bernie Sanders, they want to believe in him. People don't want to think, oh, he may not be good on a certain issue. They want to think he's 100% awesome. And whoever it is, the same with people who vote for Hillary. So part of my act, deals with not just the self-centeredness and the me, and the selfie generation and the narcissism of America, but also that stuff of just always the salesmanship of everyone selling themselves. Everyone's got an Instagram. Everyone's selling themselves. So it kind of satires that a little bit. And then
you're satiring, you're spoofing the core of American culture.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It's the marketing. I mean, when you think about it, Ronald Reagan, what was he? He was an actor. Right? And we suspended our disbelief and said, no, he's not. Yeah. It's real.
Yeah.
Right? He really is a cowboy who's going to save us.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And here we are again, decades later with Trump, who's a reality show host.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But we're suspending our disbelief again. Yeah. And my favorite thing, I say it over and over, is Frank Luntz did a focus group on Trump supporters, and asked them, why are you supporting Trump? And one of them said, well, he's going to make America great again. It says it right on his hat.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it's like, well, there you go.
Well, there you go. And
hats don't lie.
That's right, and that's why you're the world champion.
Yeah. So this hat doesn't lie. It's got the emojis for world and champion, so it's like it doesn't lie. And then the past few years, I actually started doing stand-up overseas. I started going to Europe, and when I initially started doing that, I thought I was going to be learning more about other countries, and over the past few years, I've done shows in England, Scotland, Ireland, France, Netherlands, Finland, Sweden, and I'm going to be doing more. So a fair amount of countries, but what wound up really happening was not learning so much about their countries, which I did do, but I started learning more about my own country. It's kind of like if you're in a bad relationship with someone and you can't see it, but all your friends can see it. It's because you're too close to it. So by getting outside of America, it's almost like I was able to see it better. So, the different hypocrisies and, government oppression. And, there's a lot of governments in the world that are much more oppressive than ours and more corrupt than ours. And, ours obviously does have corruption. But one thing our country has that I haven't noticed in other countries, and I find the Democrats and the Republicans both agree on this. They both market our country as the greatest country in the world.
That's right. And
that we are electing the leader of the free world. Yep. Even though we're the only country that gets to vote for the leader of the free world. No other country gets to do that. So it's that kind of a propaganda that I see both sides doing. So, and I think that's one thing why I think a lot of people in this country are more angry than in some other countries, is that the American dream, other countries don't have this exceptionalism. Like if you go to England, they're not walking around going, we're number one, We're always doing that.
That's because we're fucking crushed.
Right.
We're number one.
Yeah, exactly. And in Sweden, they're not doing that. So it's interesting that, like, everyone since they're a child has been fed this idea that we're the greatest, and we're not just individually the greatest. As a country, we have the greatest laws and system that can make anybody, if they just work hard, be rich and famous. And so when it doesn't start happening to people, they get really frustrated. It's like finding out Santa Claus isn't real, So some people, they don't know how to handle it, and they go in different directions of what they think will make them feel better, whether it's wherever they're looking, So that's one thing I find unique about this country, and that's something in my stand-up act and even in my book that I address a lot of,
Yeah, so I love this conversation, and it goes to the core of what America is marketing, right?
Yes.
America is the greatest brand on earth, and it has been
so well put. Yeah,
it's been decades of marketing behind this brand. So America stands for what? Freedom and liberty, right?
Yeah.
Except we had slaves for longer than almost any other country.
Right. And also, when we say that we stand for freedom and liberty, that means other countries don't, because that's not in their slogan.
Right.
Most countries don't even have slogans. All our cities have slogans. When my stand-up act, I ask other people from other countries and cities in other countries, like, what's your slogan? They're like, we don't really have one. We all have one. We sell stuff. You're right. We market more than anybody.
Like in Turkey, we have the opposite problem because I grew up till I was 8 in Turkey. They think marketing is ugly. Like they think like it's a great shame and dishonor to market yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so they don't market anything. They have like 2 or 3 of the 7 ancient wonders of the world in Turkey. They're like, shush, don't say anything about it. It's a great shame if you do, right? But why not?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Here's the opposite.
Right, but then you come to America and everything is marketing.
Yeah.
It's a one giant Disneyland, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, Dave and I who before we founded the show, it was me, Dave, and Ben who founded the show, and David is an old friend of mine who grew up together, and we're driving across the country, and it says, like, biggest man-made well in America.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit, right? Yeah. But they put a giant sign up, and you know what happens?
Yeah.
Everyone stops.
Yeah. Yeah, I would stop. I would do it.
Of course, right?
Yeah. There's one thing in this country that I mean, there's more than one, but because you're right, you actually start to lose the meaning and power of words when everything is awesome and everything's the best, everything's number one. But like, I remember driving across country about 10 years ago, and I stopped at the Grand Canyon, and it is unbelievable. It's over 250 miles of a canyon. You can't even see all the way.
There's no other country that has a canyon that good.
Yeah.
We're number one in canyon.
But we really are. That's what we are. But like, so when you look at that name, the Grand Canyon, you're like, wow, grand. Okay. And you look at that canyon, you're like, well, okay, now I understand the power of that word. And you realize, wow, I've been really overusing awesome and a lot of other words a lot, because that's grand. And it truly is.
Right.
Like, all right, the cheeseburger I had, that was good, but it was not awesome.
It was not great.
Yeah, you know what I mean? No matter how good it was,
So, I mean, look, best example is World Series.
Oh, yeah.
Really? On what fucking ground?
Yeah. No, I just tweeted that recently. It's like I've seen 2 teams in Asia and 1 in Argentina that I think can take the Royals, So, yeah.
But they don't get a chance. Sorry, we do the World Series.
Yeah.
Not you.
Yeah.
Because we're America.
Yep.
But people start to actually believe it. I mean, we kid around about it because we understand the reality of it, right? And you give credit for things that America has done great.
So many things.
Right. I mean, the United Nations and, the idea of pushing human rights throughout the world. We didn't invent that, but for a while, we did a good job of pushing it. We're kind of ignore it now, but, right?
And we still do a lot of great things, you know. But there's also... There's a lot of work, too, that needs to be done.
That's right. But if you say that to people, they've internalized the branding so much, the marketing so much, they get really mad at you, right?
Yeah.
And then they'll say, our healthcare system might have problems, but it's the number one in the world.
Yeah.
But actually it isn't. It's number 37.
Right. And like anything, like, to get improvement, it's okay to acknowledge that you're not doing that well. It's like, if you're someone who has... drug problems or weight problems. It's like the first step into getting better is admitting it. And
I love this conversation.
And it's okay to admit you're not the best at something. That's how you can actually become the best at something.
That is an epiphany, man. That is a grand epiphany. Because you're right. I never thought about it. Like, I know that America does the marketing and and I talk about it, but I never realized that by us saying we're number one, it forces us to not fix what's wrong.
Right, exactly.
And it's actually, now I'm thinking about it, and it connects to another story that we did on the show that I love, which was, if you tell your kids that they're geniuses, that really screws them up. Okay? because they think everything is based on if you're really good at it or you're not good at it, right? They don't realize that no, hard work makes you good at something, right?
Yeah.
And so if they're not good at it, they go, I must not be a genius at it, and they drop it immediately, right? And it ruins them, right? If you tell them that it's you get it through hard work, then they work hard to get results, etc. And we've ruined the country in a sense, and that's why I think we're headed in a bad spot in a lot of ways, because we told ourselves we're geniuses. We're number one. We're number one, so don't fix anything, right? And if you're not doing something well, don't ignore it. Ignore it.
It must not be worthwhile. It's like, I'm a big soccer fan, and soccer is not the most popular sport in this country. It keeps growing, but there's so many people who just shit all over soccer. It's it's not a good sport or whatever, and that's because we're not winning.
That's exactly
if we won the World Cup, people would be like, yeah, soccer's the best.
It's cognitive dissonance on a mass scale. Right? If we're not good at it, then it's not that we're not good. It's that it must suck.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That's so fascinating. All right. So now I want to rewind a little bit because I want to know how you got into this thing in the first place, right?
What, comedy?
Comedy,
Okay.
That's like a ballsy, crazy thing to do. Did you know you were going to go into comedy, or?
Yeah. Well, I always did a lot of art, and for me, and my parents were very strict, and my mom's an artist, and so she passed it on to me. I was always doing tons of art, and my dad really, from a young age, always taught me to question authority, and that's one of the reasons I hated school so much. I mean, I got good grades. I had to get good grades. My parents were very strict. They didn't let us watch a lot of TV. It was either, first was do your homework, and then it was, go outside and play, or if you're staying inside, create something, write something, draw something, make something, So
that's such a cool job.
So I was always, and I got into, I remember like sitting around breakfast and, I'd be eating, my dad's looking at the paper, and then all of a sudden he just starts laughing. He starts cracking up. I remember being a kid being like, what, I'm not laughing. Why is he laughing all of a sudden? And it would be like a political cartoon in the paper, like Herblock or somebody. And it fascinated me that this drawing could just like create laughter like that. So I was intrigued by that. So when I was like 10, 11, I started doing some of my own little comic strips, and some of them were just funny, and then some of them were like political ones, and so I always did that, and then it was somewhere, and when I was in 9th grade, I got into animation, doing my own animated. I had this. I lucked out, and the substitute art teacher was a woman who, looking back, I mean, I didn't know then, but looking back, my guess is that she was gay, and she was also like someone who was a real artist, and she lived in Baltimore, and so she like had us doing all kinds of things that other art teachers were never doing, So she taught us animation, and I was just blown away by it. So in animation, you have to do tons of drawings. You have to do at least 9 drawings for 1 second of film. And
I'm so out.
Yeah. And I was, for me, I was like, oh, I love this. Like doing it for hours and hours and hours. And then I even did some up into my early 20s. But when I was 16, I learned that. So I was always interested in comedy, with the animation, with the drawing as a kid. And then when I was 16, I learned that you can actually become a comedian. And there was a show that came on late at night, and it was all comics you'd never heard of. It was called Comedy Tonight. And they would actually, because before when I'd see comedians, I'd see, you'd see Joan Rivers, you'd see Rodney Dangerfield, and it was great, but it never occurred that you could do that. It just seemed as part of this showbiz thing that didn't seem real. But this one was all these young comics, you never heard of them, and then they would talk about how, hey, you can see him, he's going to be at this comedy club. And I was like, what? There's places you can go and watch this, and you can do this? I'm like, I want to do that. So that's when I was 16. So I started writing jokes then. And I was very introverted, and then I made like 19 the deadline for me to get on stage. It's like I had to get on stage before I turned 20. So when I was
funny what's in people's heads.
Why
you thought that? Right?
Yeah. So it's something I just had to do. So I've been writing jokes for about 3 years, and then when I was 19, I go to an open mic. It was in Washington D.C., and you put together what you think is going to be 5 minutes, and you just go up there and give it a shot. And
so first talk show I ever did, I fell in love. So that's it. I'm doing this rest of my life.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And by the way, we're about the same age.
Okay.
And I was this close to going to NYU.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
You went to NYU.
Yeah, I don't talk about it much because I didn't really like it there.
Oh, that's funny.
I find most colleges in this country to be a complete farce and a sham and a ripoff. I think with the prices, it's just I think for some things you need to go to school for, but a lot of things you can literally just buy books and read them or go to the library and get them for free. It's
people ask me, I get this question far too often. They say, did law school teach you how to think?
Yeah.
It's like, no, I wasn't a fucking moron. When I went to law school, they didn't teach me how to think. That's crazy talk.
That's a great statement, and that's something that I'm really big on, and that is that I think the reason I really hated school was not just the oppression and the fascism of it, but was that it not only did it not teach you to think, it discouraged you from thinking. I remember being in an English class in 11th or 12th grade. You'd read a book, and then you would read literary criticism about that book, and then your homework assignment was to write a paper summarizing the plot of the book, and then what the other critics thought of the book. Not ever what you fucking thought.
That's right.
That's right. But I think that's one of the big, even like with the political, clashes in this country, is that most people in this country, I think most people, didn't pay attention much in school, but I think a lot of people also, even if they did pay attention in school, most people they don't teach you how to think. They don't teach you to question authority. They don't teach you to think for yourself. They're always just like, they're just like, memorize this, memorize that, summarize what that other person said, and it's like, so kids from when they're kids to when they're 18, they've never been taught to think for themselves. And so, what do you think is going to happen in society when you build a whole society and hardly anyone is actually thinking for themselves?
Yeah, I remember when I was in college, and I loved philosophy. So I took a couple of philosophy courses, and then I asked one of the professors, I said, what happens? Like, let's say I want to study philosophy. Let's say I want to major in philosophy, right? And he's like, oh, well, then you have to research one of the other philosophers and become an expert in it. Like, no, when do I become the philosopher?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
you have a brain, you have a heart, you have a soul.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he laughed, and he's like, it's preposterous. How dare you think you could actually become a philosopher, think for yourself? Well, I'm like, you guys are wasting your life analyzing other philosophers?
Yeah. To me, that's such oppression, that's just like, it's maddening to me. And when I see it happen on other people, like sometimes people will come up to me after a show and they'll be like, hey, I'm thinking of doing stand-up comedies, and my friends say I should do it. What do you think? And I go, first of all, look, comedy is a lonely, stand-up comedy is a lonely business. It's a rough business. So if you have to have someone else tell you that they think you should do it, you should definitely not do it. It has to come from within.
Right.
And then the second thing is, a lot of people will want to take a class or something like that. And I'm like, I'm not big in it. You can teach some things about how the business works. And then you can teach a few basic things about stand-up comedy, about, don't do other people's material. Try not to sound like someone else or have mannerisms like someone else. And that's really about it. But then you can teach, sort of how the business works, and stuff like that. But in general, it's like, I don't think people, when they're doing any kind of art, should be, have someone really telling them, and, molding them. They need to find their own way.
Yeah, that's funny, because when I told my dad, okay, I went to business school and law school like you wanted me to, because we were immigrants, just kind of very similar to your study.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, Dad, I'm going to drop out and become a talk show host.
Yeah.
Right? And he was like, first he was like, heart attack. He's
right.
Like, oh no, what have we done? Right? And then afterwards, he's like, okay, that's okay. Now, where do we go to school for a talk show?
Yeah, all right.
I'm like, Dad, there's no school for talk show.
Yeah.
And his head exploded again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
no, there's some things you really don't need school for. You need to, and I've always been it's like I remember my dad giving me this analogy. It's like, you go to school to learn how to ride a bike. No, you get on it, you fall off, you get back on it. And eventually you learn it.
That's exactly it. And I brought up my first time doing it because I wanted to ask you. So first time you did the comedy night,
Yeah.
did you immediately love it? Or?
Yeah, I did, and so I was so nervous. I had to get there at 6 o'clock to sign up for the open mic. Didn't go on stage till around 11. So it was hours of just saying my act over and over and over again, in the bathroom, the back of the club, in the parking lot, in my car, just, 5 hours straight, basically. And then as soon as right as I'm about to go on stage, the host comes up to me and he goes, "I'm cutting you to 3 minutes."
Oh,
so
no.
and my first thought was like, "Oh, why is this guy being a jerk to me?" But looking back, he was being nice because the audience was starting to leave. A lot of people were going on stage and they were bummed, and the audience was leaving. He just wanted to get all the comics on. But for me, never done comedy before. I just literally said my act, over and over and over again for 5 hours straight. The 5-minute act, or what I thought was 5 minutes. Now I'm like, I have to cut it to 3. I'm like, how do I do that? So, and I don't have a recording that first set, but as soon as I got on stage, it felt warm, like a nice warmth, and it felt like home. And it felt calm and relaxed. It felt great.
That's great.
So, and I did get a few chuckles. I mean, it wasn't a great set by any means, but I did get a few chuckles. Second time I did it, I actually did very well. And then, but it was just something, and even today, doing stand-up is the most relaxing thing I do. You wouldn't think that, but that's become, in my opinion, what I'm best at, what I'm most comfortable doing.
It's so funny. At some point in this interview, I wanted to give you a hug. Then I looked down on my notes for a second, and you were the hug guy in the Dave Matthews.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, there was a video called Every Day, and it's the whole video. It's from the Dave Matthews Band, and pretty much the whole video is me just walking around hugging strangers. Yeah, and that was about 3.5 days of filming, and about 80% of it is real. The other was staged. And
do you get recognized for that?
Once in a while, I still do, but for years, I got recognized a lot. Yeah. So and it's actually a very well done. Whether you like that band or not, it's a very well done music video, and it's it's pretty touching. So I remember that was like one of the first things I did that actually I was in a project that actually touched people. I was used to people coming up and saying, "Hey, good show," or funny in that TV or movie thing, but some people were like tearing up, and they're like, that was just so. I was like, wow, it's weird.
That's neat. I can talk to you all day, but we got to run. So I will ask you one last thing about the book. In the books, if the rainbows, I keep saying,
I know it happens sometimes.
Right, if the raindrops united. Yeah. But you also make fun of not vegans, but so you're liberal, but you're making fun of these people who are paying $50 for an ounce of ketchup, and
well, to me that's a classism issue, and I live in and a self-centered issue, because I think there's many people. There's something I've realized over the years, and I think this happens when people are trying to get someone to see their point of view. If you're liberal and you're trying to get someone who's right wing to see your point of view, or vice versa. I think some people are able to, with their imagination, put themselves in someone else's shoes. Some people just literally, like biologically, cannot. They cannot relate to something unless it happens to them.
That drives me nuts.
But
I think it's the number one problem.
And that's part of just reality. So that's something I think I've known that a little bit for a while, but it's really sunk into me, I think, the past couple of years. So when I'm discussing things with people, I always take that into effect that they really can't imagine what it must be like for a black person driving around a car in a certain city, and that cops might treat them differently, or whatever the situation.
Right.
And the same thing can also happen with a rednecky white guy, and he's walking around in a posh upscale white neighborhood. They're going to treat him like shit, and then people can't. A lot of people can't see what life is like for someone else who's different than them. So, in my comedy, a lot of my comedy is blunt and hard hitting, but a lot is kind of sneaks up on you. So that when I'm doing my comedy, I try to do it so that no matter, even though I'm talking about issues that are very progressive, I try to do it in a way that no matter where you stand politically, you're going to laugh at it, because I do things that are so absurd that people might, I don't know if I'll change them, but they might start actually thinking about it and be like, oh yeah, I guess that is a little ridiculous, because I find many people on the right and the left even though they hate each other on so many issues, most of them want the same thing. You know,
of course.
So that's
blinded
so that's why, and that's why I find, I always find that interesting. And I even find it, on like I have one cartoon in here. This is, let me see if I can find it here. It's
So some of this stuff has political slant, by the way, but but others are just funny. I mean, Judah makes a great point.
Yeah.
The trees really could use the leaves during the winter.
Yeah. I love trees. They're not the brightest. They've been doing it wrong for years.
Yeah.
Take your leaves off in the summer, wear them in the winter. They've been doing it backwards for, I would say, decades now. So, but like here's one here. This one here, you can see. This, now, I'm poking a little fun, I'm always supporting the minorities, but sometimes people's their heart's in the right place, but they haven't fully thought it out.
Right.
So this one is taking a little dig at like some college students. There's a poster that says Smoking Awareness Week, and then there's a picture of a lung. So there's a white lung, and it says, it's clear lung, and it says good lung. And there's a black lung, and it says bad lung. And the people at the bottom say, this poster is so racist. The other person says, let's protest. Now, a black lung is unhealthy. It is bad. It has nothing to do with race or skin color or any kind of, bigotry or racism. So that's like a little dig at something. Because now, I'm not saying all college people are always getting it wrong, but that's like one cartoon in there that takes a little dig at some people, because some people, and like I said, it even happens on the left too, and even with words, in censorship, there can be, fascism that comes from the left as well as the right when it comes to freedom of speech. And sometimes they're right, because sometimes there are comics certainly out there who say, hey, I'm not a PC guy, I can say whatever I want. But some of them are just doing racist stuff and hiding under that, that
right.
PC stuff. But then there are some comics who are using, very loaded derogatory words, but they're using them in a very provocative and insightful way. And, so I'm not for banning all words, or ideas, but some people are, and I think that's a little misguided.
Yeah, it's frustrating that people can't understand that context matters.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that's happened. The internet age is amazing, and Twitter and stuff is amazing. But one thing I've noticed is that nuance has almost been lost. It's like almost everyone is like a 5-year-old who tastes broccoli for the first time and just goes, "Puh," and they spit it out. So it's like when they don't like something, they just want to hate that person and they want to shame that person immediately without discussing it. Because sometimes people might be doing something that's bigoted, but they don't even know it. They may not be as evil as you think, and that's a real chance to talk to that person and really open up their mind and maybe change that person. But if you just shame them immediately, you might lose that chance.
Totally.
So it's just,
No, you do know. That's exactly right. If the Raindrops United, everybody check it out. Judah Friedlander.
Great talking.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
I want to say it was awesome. That's overstating it a little bit.
Yeah, even grand might be overstating it, but it was excellent.
It was, and it is the world champion, so that's to be expected.
True.